So last video I spoke to you guys on two things that will help you avoid being broke in 2025 as agents. But now here's something that I've picked up from working with some of the best in the country in regards to running their business and how we can actually avoid or at least navigate the situations in which we find ourselves in a rut. Now here's the reality of it. No matter who you are or how long you've been in business, you will eventually find yourself in a rough patch, meaning you will have all your processes in order, or you would have done everything you think is correct from the aerial view, and none of it's coming. No one's closing. The appointments are canceled, things of that nature. And realistically, that is a situation that you cannot avoid. Only thing you can do is be better prepared for that situation when it happens. So now let's just get to it. How do I handle that situation when it happens? Well, the reality of it is, if that situation happens, it could be an indicator of one or two things. One is something that you absolutely can't control, but should have been controlling. Even if you think you have, you probably weren't. And that is, you've changed something in your process. What do I mean? So let's say, for instance, you are in a rut. Nothing seems to be going well. You have a lot of appointments canceling. But let's say, for instance, you got so comfortable within the process and the success that you were having that you stopped doing the simple things that you can't control. The TNT, as we say, take no talent. It took no talent, or it took really no real effort to send out reminders about your appointments. Sometimes when we are in this moment where, let's say we're in flow state, the money's flowing, the commission checks are looking good, and we're closing deal after deal, and we start to neglect the little things that helped us get to that point because we're basking in that level of success that we're having. And no matter how much long you've been in business, it happens to the best of us. It really does. And so what tends to happen is, again, those small things, that little reminder for those appointments that kept you top of mind for that person, that you thought was like meaningless, they were going to cancel anyway. Well, the reality of it is, it probably kept them more committed to that appointment. Now, whether or not you would have closed that or not is different. But guess what? If someone shows up, you now have an opportunity to sell. If no one ever shows up, you don't have an opportunity at all. And that's the difference. And that's like a key, like a small example of something that you may have neglected in your process that you got success with, that you neglected again because you're just feeling yourself realistically. And that's just the end all be all of it. The second thing is something that you can't control. And this is when you have to you really have to trust yourself as an entrepreneur or a salesperson in this landscape, whether that be you're just doing insurance, final expense, IULs, pre-need, or you are a real estate agent. There may be a shift in the market, and how you need to address or approach that market needs to change. And so if you're in a situation where, and we're not talking about maybe 1 week, a bad week is going to happen. Heck, even a bad month may happen. But if you have like or 4 to 6 consecutive bad weeks, there's something happening, especially if you can actually say that you've been sticking to your process that's been working. You've been doing all the things that you can do. You've controlled all the things you can control. All of those things, if you can definitively say, hey, no, I stood 10 toes down and I did this, there may be a shift in the market, and you need to understand why. And so this is the thing that you can't control, but you can control. You can't control the shift. You can control how your business navigates it. And so if the shift happens, you need to be aware as to what's happening in the marketplace. Is there something about your particular product that may be impacted by some things that the consumer is now catching wind of? Is there something realistically in your geographically in your locale that shifted that you weren't necessarily aware of, or maybe you didn't pay attention to, that now you have to give credit to? Is there a new product in your market that really is starting to catch waves, and now that's the new shiny toy that that maybe you totally neglected, or just really out of sight, out of mind because you were in the grind? Now that you have to turn your attention to, how do you combat that? Maybe you have to get your battle cards ready, whether that be for yourself or for your team. There is something there, and it's not necessarily your work that's being challenged. It may be how you approach your work. So realistically, how do you navigate that? And it's all about, and that's the importance of realistically always being in a state of learning. because if you're always in a state of learning, when these things happen, you at least have some inkling as to why it's happening, and then you can start making your adjustments. Now, here's the flip side of this. Here's why that's important, and here's why you have to really be keen to it. Because on the flip side, you could have an inkling, or rather, you could be completely oblivious to it, and you get hit with this, and now you're so out of sorts, you don't know how to pivot, and you can't conduct business or bounce. You can't help your business bounce back. You have to be always on top of your game, even if you are, and that's different for everyone. Don't get me wrong, but if you're at least knowledgeable, if you're at least reading on a daily basis on the different things that are happening in your industry, you are doing more work than 90% of the people who are in your industry, especially in sales. Most salespeople don't do the work, which is why that top 1% lives so much better than the bottom. And what I mean by that is the bottom, I would say the bottom 90. I think if we really have to break that down, not to sound so harsh, and yeah, I'm going to do this rambling with you on video. The top 1%, yeah, those are the cream of the crop. The top 10%, realistically, those are your studs, top 20% of your studs. But really, like, once you get past like the top 20, let's do that, top 20%, the rest of the 80% is not doing that type of work. They're not trying to keep up with industry trends. They're not seeing what their competitors are doing. They're not really understanding what's happening geographically with that particular product, so they can get ahead of it. They're not doing that work. They are individuals who are casually going about their business, and that's how they end up as casualties, which is also why sales in itself, especially within the insurance and real estate space, has such a high turnover, because people don't go about it from that perspective. They go about it a little too passively, a little too casually, and they end up being a casualty. So again, if you're doing that, you can at least avoid such a steep downturn in your business and be able to bounce back. And that's the whole point of this particular channel. Sharing tips and tricks, different things that we've learned, different things that we've seen across the country, so that you can always have an opportunity to get it right and to actually make money in this business. But I want to hear your thoughts. Whether it's love or whether it's hate, put it in the comments. I want to hear what you think. I'll be in there with you. Until next time. Peace.